My family kicked me out because my sister falsely accused me of stealing her engagement ring. 3 years later, they discovered it in the garbage disposal. I never thought I'd be telling this story, but here goes. I'm Elliot, 26, and 3 years ago my life was turned upside down. So, I'm 26 and 3 years ago my sister Gemma, who's 29, falsely accused me of stealing her engagement ring. I grew up in a small town in Ohio with my parents, John, who's 55, and Lisa, who's 53, and my sister Gemma. We lived in a 2-story house that my parents bought when they first got married. It wasn't fancy, but it was home. My dad worked as a high school teacher. He was a high school math teacher and my mother was a nurse at the local hospital. They weren't wealthy but they made sure we got all we needed growing up. Gemma and I were quite close. We'd spend hours playing in our backyard, climbing the ancient oak tree and inventing complicated games. She was always the leader, making up the rules and plots, while I was content to follow along. However, things began to change. Gemma was always an overachiever. She was the top of her class, captain of the debate team and appeared to thrive in whatever she tried. In contrast, I was more laid back. Back then, I did okay at school, but I was never as motivated as Gemma as we got to high school. This started to mess up our relationship. By the time Gemma left for college, we had grown apart. She went to a good university with a scholarship, but I stayed local and went to community college. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I did okay at school, but I was never as motivated as Gemma as we got older. This started to ruin our relationship. By the time Gemma left for college, we had grown apart. She went to a famous university with a scholarship, while I stayed local and went to community college. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, so I took a range of classes to figure it out. Gemma moved to the city after graduating from college and started working at a big marketing agency. She'd come home for holidays and weekends, full of stories about her amazing life and excellent job. I couldn't help feeling inferior. In contrast, I was still living at home, working part-time. So I decided to take a bunch of classes to figure it out. Gemma moved to the city after graduating from college and started working at a big marketing agency. She'd come back home for holidays and weekends, always with stories about her amazing life and awesome job. I couldn't help feeling a bit inferior. I was still living at home, working part-time at the local grocery shop and trying to figure out my next step. Despite our differences, I always thought Gemma and I were fine. We weren't as close as we used to be, but I figured it was just part of growing up. I had no idea how quickly everything might fall apart. Gemma and her boyfriend Tom, 31, got engaged 3 years ago. They'd been dating for 2 years, and everyone was over the moon. Tom was a lawyer from a rich family, and my parents adored him. He popped the question with a gorgeous diamond ring. That's been in his family for generations. Gemma was over the moon, and couldn't stop showing it off to everyone. The engagement party was a huge do. My parents brought what felt like the entire town to our house to celebrate. I remember feeling a bit out of place among the rich people Gemma and Tom had invited from the city. I stuck with my old high school friends who were still in town, and felt more at ease with them than with Gemma's sophisticated crowd. A month later, things got a bit heated. It was Tuesday afternoon and I was off work. I was in my room playing video games and enjoying the quiet house. Gemma was visiting for a week, taking some time off work to start arranging the wedding with our mother. I heard Gemma return home from a shopping trip with her mum. They were talking and laughing downstairs. I didn't think much of it and went back to my game. About an hour later, I heard Gemma scream. I ran downstairs to see what was going on. She said I'd taken her engagement ring. She said she'd taken it off while doing the dishes and left it on the kitchen counter. When she went back to get it, it was gone. I was stunned and quickly denied taking it, but Gemma wouldn't listen. She kept shrieking that I was the only other person in the home, so it must have been me. She said how I was always jealous of her success and how I probably wanted to sell the ring so I could finally move out and accomplish something with my life. When the parents got home, Gemma told them what had happened, and they believed her. I was horrified, but they thought she was right. My mum started crying and asked how I could do that to my sister. My dad looked at me with disappointment. They searched my room and turned everything upside down, but they didn't find the ring. They did find some money I'd saved from my job at the supermarket, but it wasn't much, maybe a few hundred. They got wind of it pretty quickly, saying I must have sold the ring and that's where the money came from. I tried to explain that I'd been saving for months and was thinking of taking some classes at the local community college, but no one listened. The following few days were a nightmare. My parents and Gemma kept on pressing me to confess and return the ring. They threatened to contact the police if I didn't come clean. I was afraid and felt totally alone. Nobody in my family believed me. I was accused of selling the ring and using the money to buy the ring, but I insisted I'd been saving for months and was thinking of going to community college. The next few days were a total nightmare. My parents and Gemma wouldn't stop asking me to confess and give back the ring. They even threatened to contact the police if I didn't come clean. I was afraid and felt totally alone. Nobody in my family believed me, and I felt like a criminal in my own home. I tried getting in touch with some of my friends, but most of them had moved away after high school. The few who were still in town didn't want to get involved in family arguments. After a week of non-stop accusations and threats, my parents made a decision that would change my life forever. They told me I needed to leave. They said they couldn't trust me anymore and that I was making them look bad. They gave me two. I was treated like a criminal in my own home. I tried getting in touch with some of my friends, but most of them had moved away after high school. The few who remained in town didn't want to get involved in family arguments. I felt more alone than ever after a week of non-stop accusations and threats. My parents made a decision that would alter my life forever. They told me I needed to leave. They said they couldn't trust me anymore and that I was making my family look bad. They gave me 2 days to pack my things and leave. I was devastated. I had nowhere to go and didn't know what to do. My best friend from high school, Ryan, 26, who had recently come back to town after serving in the army, offered to let me stay on his couch for a while, but I knew I couldn't stay there long. His apartment was small and he was still getting back on his feet. I packed everything I could into a backpack and an old duffel bag, including clothes, books, my laptop and a few memories from better times. I was on my way out of the house and I saw Gemma looking out of her old bedroom window at me. I thought I saw her eyes flicker with doubt, but she quickly looked away and left. It was the hardest thing I'd ever had to do. I felt let down and unwanted by the people who should have loved me unconditionally. The saddest part was that I hadn't done anything wrong. For the next 2 months, I moved between Ryan's sofa and cheap motels as much as I could afford. I took on any job I could. Jobs I could find to make ends meet. I've done a bit of everything, from washing dishes to dog walking, and even spent a few weeks on a construction job. It was a challenge, but I was determined to prove my innocence and succeed on my own. Eventually, I got a solid job at a warehouse on the outskirts of town. The job was hard, the hours were long, but the pay was consistent. The salary wasn't spectacular, but it allowed me to rent a modest room in a shared house with some other warehouse workers. I gradually began rebuilding my life, but I never stopped feeling sad about what had happened. I'd lie awake at night, thinking about what had happened and wondering how it had gone so wrong. How could my family have turned against me so quickly? How could Gemma, who had grown up with me and knew me better than anyone else, believe I would do such a thing? I cut all communication with my family. They tried to contact me several times. At first, my mother left heartfelt voicemails urging me to come home. Sort things out. My dad sent a few text messages saying we needed to talk about Gemma, but I said no when she turned up at the warehouse. I couldn't stand to talk to them after what they'd done. They weren't my family for 3 years. That was my life. I made new friends at work and at home. We'd hang out after shifts, drink beer and watch games. It wasn't the life I'd imagined, but it was mine and I'd made it from scratch. I worked hard. I even got promoted to shift supervisor at the warehouse. I started doing online classes to learn business management. I was slowly working out what I wanted to do with my life, but there was always a part of me that was angry and hurt by what had happened. I missed my old life and family, but I couldn't forgive them for not believing me. Every holiday season was hard when I saw families shopping together or heard Christmas music. I felt sad for what I had lost. Then last week, I got an unexpected email from my dad. It just said, "We need to talk." It was short and sweet, saying they wanted to meet up ASAP about the ring incident. At first, I was tempted to dismiss it, as I did with all their other attempts to reach me, but something made me hesitate. Maybe it was curiosity, or maybe a small part of me still wanted to know what was going on. After arguing with myself for hours, I decided to listen. I got an email from my dad out of the blue last week. He said we needed to talk, and that it was about the ring thing. I was tempted to ignore it, like I usually do when they try to contact me, but I couldn't help but wonder. Maybe it was curiosity, or maybe I still wanted to know what happened. After thinking about it for hours, I decided to give them a call. My dad told me they'd found the ring. Gemma had accidentally thrown it in the dishwasher while she was doing the dishes. She only realized a few days ago when the dishwasher started making weird noises, so they called a plumber to check it out. My dad said Gemma was pretty upset when she found out what had happened, and that I had been telling the truth all along. He said they all felt bad about what they did to me and wanted to. I got on the phone with my dad and he told me they'd found the ring. Gemma had knocked it into the dishwasher by accident while she was doing the dishes. She only realized a few days ago when the dishwasher started making weird noises, so they called a plumber to take a look. My dad said Gemma was upset when she found out what had happened and that I hadn't been lying about it. He said they felt bad about what they did to me and wanted to make things right. I hung up and I felt all sorts of things. Part of me felt like I'd been vindicated because I'd always told the truth, and now everyone knew it. But part of me was angry. I felt outraged that it took 3 years to find out the truth. I missed so much time with my family and I fought alone for so long when I hadn't done anything wrong. Now I'm at a crossroads. My family wants me to return home and says they want to make things right. Gemma has been phoning and messaging non, "I don't want you asking for forgiveness anymore, but I'm not sure I can forgive them. They made me feel like I was worthless and left me to fend for myself for 3 years. I want to tell them to F*** off and let them deal with the shame of what they did to me, but I also miss my old life and wonder if there's any way to rebuild what we've lost. I don't know what to do. Should I give them a chance to make amends, or should I carry on living the life I've created for myself without them? I'm a bit stuck here and would love to hear what you all think. It's been a week since my last post and a lot has happened. I just wanted to say a big thank you for all your advice and support. It really helped me get my head together and figure out what to do. After a lot of thought, I decided to meet with my family. I thought I owed it to myself to face them and try to sort things out. Even if I wasn't sure about reconciliation. We agreed to meet in a neutral place, a simple coffee shop in the next town. I picked it. It was far enough from our hometown that we wouldn't run into anyone we knew, but close enough that anyone could get there easily. I was pretty nervous on the day of the meeting. I hadn't seen my family in 3 years and I wasn't sure what to expect. I arrived at the coffee shop early and chose a table in the corner where we could enjoy some solitude. When they walked in, it was a bit of a shock. Seeing them after 3 years was intense. My mother burst into tears the moment she saw me. She was older than me. My dad looked more gray and wrinkly, and he looked tired and worn out. He had a saggy look about him, like he was carrying a huge weight. Gemma couldn't look me in the eye. At first, she looked smaller and less confident than the sister I remembered. She sat down, and for a while, no one knew what to say. Everyone started talking at once, and apologies were flying around. My parents said they had messed up as parents by not trusting me and kicking me out. They said they had regretted their decision every day since, but pride and embarrassment had stopped them from getting in touch earlier. My dad, who'd always been a bit of a chatterbox, spent hours talking about how he'd replayed those days in his head, trying to work out how he could have been so blind. He said he'd always prided himself on being fair and reasonable, but that emotion had clouded his judgment when it mattered most. My mum, crying, told me how she'd kept my room exactly as I'd left it, hoping I'd come back one day. She said she'd wake up in the middle of Gemma was in tears when she found out what had happened. She said she would never be able to forgive herself for accusing me and damaging our relationship. She said she had always looked up to me when we were younger. Even though I was younger, she admitted that she had been so busy with her own life and problems that she had lost sight of what was truly important. As they talked, memories of our childhood came flooding back. I remembered how Gemma stuck up for me when I was bullied at secondary school, and it made me think about all the good times we had had, like the times we'd laughed together, swapped secrets and supported each other through hard times. It made the betrayal hurt even more, but it also reminded me of the great times we'd had. I heard everything they said, but I couldn't bring myself to forgive them just yet. I still felt really angry and resentful after the last 3 years. I told them I needed time to think about things, and they seemed to understand, so they didn't push for more. My mum wanted to hug me before we went, but I backed away because I wasn't ready for that kind of closeness yet. The hurt look on her face almost convinced me to change my mind, but I decided to stick to my guns. I needed to protect myself emotionally. After the meeting, I went back to my apartment and had to think about what I wanted. Did I want to go back to my old life? Could I ever trust them again? Was it worth trying to repair our relationship? I knew that while I missed having a family, I'd also grown a lot in the last 3 years. I'd become I'd built a solid life for myself from scratch, and I wasn't the same person they'd kicked out 3 years before. I thought about my warehouse job, my online studies, and the friends I'd made. I'd worked hard to get where I was, and I was happy with what I'd achieved on my own. The thought of giving all that up and going back to my old life was pretty awful. It felt awful, but I couldn't deny that seeing my family had triggered a variety of feelings. Despite everything, I still loved and missed them. I wondered if I could have a relationship with them while still keeping my independence. After a few days of thinking about it, I decided to call my parents and explain that while I appreciated I felt really down at the time, but I also felt a lot of different things when I saw my family. I still loved and missed them, but I couldn't stop wondering if I could have a relationship with them without losing my independence. After thinking about it for a few days, I decided to call my parents. I told them I was sorry, but I just needed more time and space to get over it. I also said that I was willing to see them a bit, but not too much, and I wasn't going to go back home or pretend that nothing had happened. I said that if we were going to stay in touch, it had to be the way I wanted it. They said they understood. They were disappointed but understood. They promised to respect my boundaries and give me the time I needed. My mum asked if she could phone me once a week to check in, and I agreed, thinking it'd be a nice way to gradually rebuild trust. As for Gemma, I've decided to keep my distance for now. Her actions had affected me the most, and I told her I needed more time before I could consider having another relationship with her, but I also said I understood and that she was right to want to give me space. I've had a rough week, with lots of emotional highs and lows, and I've had moments when I question my decision, wondering if I'm being too harsh or if I'm passing up. I've had moments when I question my decision, wondering if I'm being too harsh or if I'm passing up an opportunity to reunite with my family, but then I recall how quickly they turned on me and I realize I'm doing the right thing by taking things slowly. I've also started researching therapeutic possibilities, as many of you suggested in the comments. I believe it would be beneficial to have a professional to speak with while I navigate this tricky situation. I've never been to therapy before, so I'm a bit nervous, but I think it could be good for me right now. At the moment, my main focus is on my job and studies. I've got a big project coming up at work and I'm determined not to let all this family drama distract me from my goals. I'm also thinking about moving to a better apartment. I've been saving for it and I'm ready for a place of my own, without roommates. Thank you again for your support. It's comforting to know that there are individuals out there who understand and care, even if we've never met. I'll provide an update if anything substantial changes. Update: it's been almost a month since my last update, and I'd like to share some developments. I've been sticking to the boundaries I've set with my family. We've had a few phone calls and text messages, but nothing too intense. It's been alright, a bit awkward at times, but not as bad as I expected. My parents have mostly respected my wishes. They check in now and then, but they don't ask for more than I'm willing to give. I can tell they are. They're working hard to rebuild trust, but it's a slow process. My mum calls once a week, as we promised, and these calls were a bit strained at first with extended silences, but they're getting easier. We usually chat about neutral stuff, like her job at the hospital, the weather, and my online education. It's not much, but it's a start. My dad has been he sends me short emails, usually just to check in or share something he thinks I'd be interested in. Last week, he forwarded me an article about a new business launching in our hometown. It was a little gesture, but it reminded me of how he would clip newspaper stories for me when I was younger. Gemma struggled with the barrier I'd created between us. She sent me many long emails. He sends short emails to check in and share stuff he thinks I'd like. Last week, he forwarded me an article about a new business launching in our hometown. It was a little thing he did, but it reminded me of how he would clip newspaper stories for me when I was younger. Gemma struggled with the barrier I'd created between us. She sent me lots of emotional texts, apologizing and pleading for the opportunity to make things right. I responded simply, stating that I need more time. It's difficult, but I'm holding firm on this. I know she's hurting, but I'm not prepared to deal with her feelings on top of mine. The big news is that I have started treatment. I discovered a counselor who specializes in family trauma. I've been writing some pretty emotional texts, saying sorry and asking if there's any chance I could make things right. I told her I need more time, which is hard, but I'm sticking to it. I know she's hurting, but I don't want to deal with her feelings on top of mine. The big news is that I've started treatment. I found a counselor who specializes in family trauma, and we've had a few sessions. It's been hard to talk about all the grief from the past, but I think it's helping. My therapist is helping me sort out my anger and trust issues, and she's giving me strategies for setting good boundaries. In our last session, we talked about how the ring incident was about more than just the accusation. We've had a few sessions so far, and it's been tough talking about all the past stuff, but I think it's helping. My therapist's helping me deal with my anger and trust issues, and she's given me some good tips for setting boundaries. Last session, we chatted about how the ring thing was more than just the accusation, and how I felt like I didn't measure up to my mum's achievements for years. It's made me realize that there were problems in our family long before the ring incident, and that healing will require addressing those as well. One thing I didn't expect is that I've become closer to my friends, especially Ryan. They've been really supportive. They've been really supportive throughout, and Ryan even offered to go with me to any future family meetings for moral support. It's taught me that family is more than just blood, it's about who supports you when things go wrong. Work has been a welcome distraction. I've really thrown myself into my career, and I've even been promoted. I'm now in charge of inventory management for my shift, which means more responsibility and a small pay rise. It's nice to have something nice to focus on in terms of my living situation. I've decided to stay where I am for now. It's not much, but it's mine, and it represents the independence I've worked so hard for. My parents offered to help me find a better place. I've got a new job, which means more responsibility and a bit more money. It's nice to have something positive to focus on when it comes to my living situation. I've decided to stay where I am for now. It's not much, but it's mine, and it represents the independence I've worked so hard for. My parents offered to help me find a better place, but I said no. I have to do this on my own. However, I've started thinking carefully about choices for furthering my studies. There's a state institution about an hour away that provides night classes. I'm considering applying to their business program. It would be a big move, but I think I'm prepared for it. Overall, I'm taking it one day at a time. Some days are harder than others, and sometimes I miss how close we used to be, but then I remember how quickly things changed, and I realize I can't rush this. My therapist says it's good to have mixed feelings, and she encourages me to be patient with myself and not feel like I have to forgive before I'm ready. We're We're working on ways to deal with family gatherings and holidays, which are making me more nervous than I'd like to admit. For now, my priorities are getting better and creating a life I can be proud of. With or without my family it's not easy, but I'm positive about the future. I'm learning that it's all right to put myself first and that creating boundaries doesn't make me a horrible person. Thank you for your ongoing support. Your comments and messages have given me strength during this process. It's comforting to know I'm not alone in dealing with family issues like these. Update: it's been 6 months since my original post, so I thought it was time for a final update. A lot has happened in the last 6 months. A lot has changed over the last few months. The biggest news is that I've decided to move to a different place in search of a new job. It's a big step in my career and I'm excited about the new opportunities. The job is with a logistics company and the work is similar to what I did at the warehouse, but it's a management role, which I've been keen to get for a while. The pay is way better than what I was making before, and it includes benefits like health insurance and a 401k plan. Before I made the decision, I had a long chat with my therapist about how this move will influence my healing process. I had a long chat with my therapist about how this move would affect my healing process and my relationship with my family. We agreed that it could be a positive thing for me, an opportunity to stand on my own 2 feet and identify myself outside of the family drama. I told my parents about the transfer last week. They were astonished and disappointed, but they expressed their understanding. My mother even cried a little, saying we had a chat about my relationship with my family. We agreed that it could do me some good to get away from all the family drama and find myself outside of it. I told my parents about the move last week. They were astonished and disappointed, but they understood. My mum cried a little and said she had hoped we'd have more time to sort things out before I left. My dad was more stoic, but I could see he was disappointed too. They were both worried about me being alone in a strange place, but I told them I'd be okay. Gemma took it hardest. After I told her, she showed up at my flat out of the blue, begging me not to go. She admitted that she felt like she was losing me all over again. It was a challenging conversation, but I stuck to my guns. I told her that this was something I needed to do for myself and that our relationship was not in a position where her opinion could influence my decision. Our relationship is improving, but it is not perfect. We've enjoyed several family get-togethers. We've had a few awkward dinners recently, but we're getting there. I still don't trust her, though. I don't know if she really believes what she says or if she's just trying to feel better. My therapist has been really helpful. She's helped me work out my emotions and set some boundaries. She says that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or pretending the trauma never happened, it's about letting go of my anger so I can find peace of mind. I've taken that on board, and while I don't think I'll ever forget what happened, I'm trying to forgive my family, not for their sake. She's been really helpful in helping me understand my emotions and set some boundaries. She's been really clear that forgiving doesn't mean forgetting or pretending the trauma never happened, it's about letting go of the anger to find peace. I've really taken that on board. While I don't think I'll ever forget what happened, I'm trying to forgive my family, not for their sake, but for mine. It's been hard to carry around all that anger and bitterness, and I'm ready to let it go as I get ready to move. I've been thinking about everything that happened 3 years ago. I thought my life was over, I'd lost everything, including everyone I cared about. But now I see how much I've learned from that experience. I'm stronger, I'm more independent, and I understand my own worth better now. I don't know what the future holds for me and my family, but we're planning to stay in touch. We'll do weekly phone calls and visit during the holidays, which is a start. With time and distance, maybe we'll be able to create something new. For now, I'm focusing on. I'm excited about my new job, the city, and all the opportunities that are coming my way. I've started looking for flats online and doing some research about the area where I'll be living. I'm feeling a bit excited and nervous, but I'm mostly looking forward to this next step in my life. Whatever happens with my family, I'm sure I'll be okay. I'm excited about my new job, the city, and the opportunities that await me. I've started looking for flats online and I've done some research about the area where I'll be living. I'm feeling a bit excited and nervous, but I'm looking forward to this next step in my life. Whatever happens to my family, I'm sure I'll be okay. I've shown myself that I can deal with whatever life throws at me, and I've learned the value of surrounding myself with people who believe in and support me, whether they're related to me or not. Thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.